Hi, my name is Adrian Simmons, and I'm the Chief Creative Designer here at Element CPA, where we help entrepreneurs to design their business and their finances. In this video, I want to take just a couple moments to walk you through the tool that we developed to help entrepreneurs achieve and plan for 100% loan forgiveness if they received a PPP loan. It's actually connected to a blog post that we published on our Insights blog. In that post, we actually go through 9 different tripwires that small business owners may experience if they got a PPP loan, and they should be aware of to be sure they can get 100% loan forgiveness. So I highly encourage you to read that post. I'll provide a link to it in the notes with this video. Please be sure to check that out. But part of that is simply to go over the worksheet, which I'd like to look at together with you. A note right before I begin, as of the recording of this video, the SBA had not yet fully released its loan forgiveness guidance. So believe it or not, that's roughly 45 days past when the CARES Act was signed into law. It's also 15 days past the window they were supposed to have released guidance. So some of the details still remain. However, we've designed this worksheet to sort of stay within the guardrails and not to try to push into the edges. And similarly, we'll be keeping tabs on any of the changes. If there's anything big that is different than what is shared here, I'll be sure to include it in the notes to the video. So be sure to see those for any updates that may have come out subsequent to this recording. So with that, let's go ahead and dive on into the worksheet itself. Something to note, this worksheet, as I mentioned, is downloadable from the blog post, so go there in order to get it. No need to create it yourself. That's sort of the whole point. The gist I'm really driving at with this worksheet is to, again, achieve that 100% loan forgiveness. So let's just take a little bit of a look on the layout. As you can see, the main gist of the layout is to sort of catalog the transactions that you have. So to begin with, there's ones maybe that have already transpired since you first got funded with PPP, and some that are sort of planned to come within your 8-week window. So once you download this, I encourage you to put in first the date that you had that PPP loan deposited into your bank account. That's when the 8-week clock starts ticking that you have to spend those PPP funds. For the date, the dollar amount, I've just got an example number here of a flat 100,000 PPP loan funds received. Second thing you're going to want to do is then calculate the 8 weeks from that date. So down at the bottom, you'll notice I calculated 8 weeks from April 15th, and I chose June 9th. And so that's the end of the 8-week period. So those are sort of the bounds of the time window we need to work within. Then within that time window, it's just a matter of putting in the date and the transactions that are happening, but there's a special way in order to do that in the way this is designed. First of all, this column here is actually calculated formula, as you can see. It's calculating based off these fields here. So you don't really want to drop numbers in here. You want to drop them here. So for instance, if I change this to $300, you'll notice that it changes the total there. So in this section is where you're going to want to record your allowable and forgivable PPP costs. Look at our blog post for a little bit more detail on what that means. But under PPP, there's really 4 general categories that are both allowable and forgivable. Those are for payroll costs, that's for rent, for mortgage interest, and for utilities. And you'll notice for each of these fields, there's a little comment box. In there, I've actually put the text for what the CARES Act defines as payroll, and that's very important, and it's one of the tripwires. So for instance, over here, you'll notice that I've put, per the CARES Act, the forgiveness section, which is section 1106, what payroll means and what it doesn't mean. Same thing for rent, what's defined as rent. Main thing is that it's a lease that you had in place as of February 15th. It's not intended to cover new leased space. Utilities as well. So utilities, electricity, gas, water, transportation, telephone, or internet. Again, that was in place as of February 15th. So those boxes will help give you a little bit more detail on exactly what each of these terms is and the allowable costs under that. But then from that, you can start to drop in the transaction dates. Now, one of the things that we recommend and you may try to achieve is to put your PPP money into one account and spend all expenses from there. That's certainly a helpful thing to do, and I still think it's a good idea. Practically speaking, though, you'll probably need to pay some expenses from other accounts, or maybe you put something on your credit card instead of it being a check or a debit card. So in our opinion, that's not a problem for that to have happened, but it still is something you'll want to track, which is why over here we've got a column to say, what account did I get this paid from? Maybe it's my Chase credit card ending in 4567, and this telephone payment to AT&T was really a credit card charge. Whereas my rent was paid from my Howard Bank checking account, and I used the Howard Bank bill pay online to sort of cut a check to my landlord like I would normally do. So again, there's demo data here, but just sort of give you an idea. So for each of those lines, the date, the dollar amount, a description of what that thing is, the vendor, the account it got paid from, sort of the method of payment. And the last column you'll see I have here is the documentation reference. One of the things we recommend everybody do is just set up a folder in your computer, and as you're spending money for these things, go ahead and save the receipt. So for instance, this AT&T bill that got paid April 25th, just save a copy of the AT&T bill, put a 1 dash, AT&T, and save it in that folder. And then, for instance, maybe when you go to pay your rent, if you have a copy of your lease, save a copy of that lease, and there's a 2 dash rent, or ABC landlord. When you pay your water bill, just put a 3 dash WSSC. So what you're doing is that you're building the documentation as you go of the things you're going to need to submit to the bank at the end of the day. And so it's much easier to just keep that as you go along the way. Something I'll mention is with the entrepreneurs we work with, we deploy a digital document system called HubDoc, which is very helpful to very easily keep track of your receipts. So I'll leave a link to the video where we talk about HubDoc. Not required, but certainly makes your life easier, and this is certainly a great time to put a tool like that into place. Regardless, setting up a folder, cross-referencing each payment that's related to the PPP here, so you can provide the banker, here's the list of payments, here's the backup for everything. It'll make that loan forgiveness that much easier, and your banker will probably thank you, I would imagine, by being organized. So the goal here, again, just to put down each transaction that's already transpired as at the time you're preparing it, and then switch over to the plan side of things. So you can say, all right, between now and June 9th, what payrolls may I happen to have run? What internet charges might I happen to be paying between now and then if I'm paying my normal monthly internet charges? Go ahead and populate that information into there. And the idea then is that the spreadsheet will automatically subtotal things for you at the bottom. Something to mention is if you need additional rows than are here, do a click and right-click and say Insert a Row. And I recommend doing it that way into that blank row because this formula is meant to total everything through the blank row. So do that instead of clicking on the supplemental line. This is just a little Excel hack for you so that that formula continues to contain everything. So I'm going to delete that one back out there, but that's just a little spreadsheet tip for you so that all the formulas continue to work properly in this spreadsheet. So you've populated what you spent so far. You've populated what you plan to spend before the 8 weeks is up. You'll notice on here I have another adjustment to payroll. So in this case, many of the customers we work with, we use the Gusto online payroll system. Usually each pay run, there's actually 2 transactions. One is the net pay and one's the payroll taxes. One of the tripwires we mentioned in the blog post is that employer Social Security and Medicare are not allowable or forgivable for PPP. So that 7.65% that an employer matches for an employee's Social Security and Medicare isn't a deduction allowable under PPP, and so we need to back that out. So I've created an extra line here, payroll employer FICA adjustment, and you can go to your payroll report for that payroll and add up what was the employer match for Social Security and Medicare and put it in here as a positive number so that it's offsetting the negative numbers that were the payroll payments. And again, this is a tripwire which could make a big difference, and you want to have planned for that adjustment as well. So once you've got all those numbers in there, the key information is now at the bottom down here in the analysis area. So as described in the blog post, there's really payroll costs and non-payroll costs. And one of the criteria under the PPP is that at least 75% of the money you spend that you want to get forgiven is for allowable and forgivable payroll costs. So the point here is to say, hey, if you got a $100,000 PPP loan, that means you need to spend at least $75,000 on forgivable payroll costs in order to be able to be allowed to forgive the full 100,000. So this formula will automatically calculate what that amount is for you based on your loan amount, as long as you put it in above. In this case, we need to have spent at least $75,000. Well, right now, as you can see, based on our planned worksheet, our current forgivable payroll cost spending, the total of this column right here, is only $61,000. So in other words, in order to get to a full 100% forgiveness, we're going to need another $13,951 to get up to that minimum threshold to permit full forgiveness. And so it's better to know this now rather than later. And so there's different planning around how to achieve that, but it's good to know it. If for whatever reason we don't spend any more than the $61,000, what that means is that there's going to be roughly $18,000 of the PPP loan that's going to be unforgiven at the end of the day, at the end of the 8 weeks. So that may be something that we're okay with, but again, I encourage everyone who can to go ahead and plan for a full 100% forgiveness. There's no reason not to in most cases. So after you put in the information, come down here and see what that analysis shows you on the payroll costs. Connected to that is the non-payroll costs, so things like the rent, the utilities, the mortgage interest, etc. And the non-payroll costs, it shows us, hey, if I reach the $75,000 in payroll costs, that means I have $25,000 of non-payroll costs that I can also spend and have fully forgiven. So that gives us the maximum amount. However, the amount of non-payroll costs I can have forgiven is limited by what my actual payroll spending is. So if I've only spent $61,000, well, guess what? I only can have $20,000 of non-payroll costs forgiven. And that's why it's important to have enough payroll costs. And right now, this is telling my current spending is $7,979. So if nothing else changes, even though I'm eligible at the current level to get $20,000 forgiven for non-payroll costs, I've only spent $7,000, so I may want to increase some of that spending in order to qualify, or be sure I've captured everything that might be hidden somewhere else. So this analysis lets you see sort of where you stand. Just to sort of show you the other side, I'm going to drop in here as part of the planning. Let's say I had another payroll on that. Whoops, I forgot there's another payroll that's going to happen. Now my total payroll spending is $83,000, as you can see, and I'm definitely past the minimum required to allow myself to get 100% forgiveness. So that's great, which that also means that I can also get the maximum non-payroll cost forgiven as well. However, as you can see, I'm still short from that. So I could be fine on the payroll side, but the non-payroll side, I can not be fine. So again, the spreadsheet sort of lets you see what's going on, where you stand, so that between the payroll and the non-payroll, you have enough to have 100% forgiven at the end of the day. So that's the gist of how it works. Just a caveat to let you know, there's a gazillion different variations on businesses. Again, this is intended to address most of the scenarios you see out there. But I'm not going to pretend that it's comprehensive for the million different variations, but I do hope it is helpful to you. Certainly, if you have questions, let us know. Element CPA members, please reach out to it. We're here to support you. So that's the gist of the spreadsheet, how it's designed, how to use it, and how to perform that analysis so you know where you stand. Next steps that you can take. One, go and read the blog post linked in the video notes. 2, complete this worksheet, see your results, and adapt as needed. 3, set up your own documentation folder. Start saving that stuff in there now. Make it easier on yourself. And 4, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Insights blog if you'd like to continue to get insights to help you run your business. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. I wanted to keep it short and sweet. And until next time, keep building financial strength for what truly matters.